Hello, Daniel.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh,
Good.
long time no see, huh?
Yeah, right. Good morning, I guess, for you, right?
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon for you. How
Yeah,
are you
yeah,
today?
good. I'm good. I'm good. Pumped. I had a nap. I had a lesson before you, and I had a nap before that lesson too. I'm like pumped and excited. And it was a longer nap than usual. Normally, I have my morning lessons, and I have some time in the afternoon where I work out, and then I take a nap. This time around, I took quite. I took a nap at 12 o'clock, which is quite early, and but I'm pumped now. Yeah.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Hannah, how are you this morning?
yeah, I just no, I woke up like an hour ago and I made coffee and I was listening to Sound of Silence, and then I was thinking about this conversation that I was going to have with you. And I would like to say thank you so much. We talked yesterday, and then when I said something about darkness, you
Mhm.
remind me of that song, and then I got that song stuck in my head the whole day, and then I was like, okay, so I must talk about that. And then I asked you if you, and thank you for saying,
No,
yeah.
it's no problem. I haven't actually had a conversation about the song, but I'm open to it, to
Cool.
figure out together.
Yeah, cool.
See what
Yeah, so since I was like, how can I say, extremely excited about this, I created sort of a presentation, like, uh,
great.
yeah. But it's not too much. But I wanted to share my screen with you. 1 second. So let me show you. Uh, so I kind of made this.
That's great. Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so impressive. I haven't made a presentation in ages, and here you
Yes.
are thinking of a song at night and making a presentation. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just don't know how to start the presentation. Do you know how to do
Well,
this?
Uh, well, I haven't used PowerPoint in such a long time, and then I'm looking at Portuguese, and I'm just my mind is going, it's spinning.
Mhm. I knew how
There
to
should
do
be.
that.
Oh, look at us, tech savvy people.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Um,
He- yes.
no.
So,
I feel no young person who wants a teacher should watch this video and see the first few minutes of us just failing to work PowerPoint.
yes, that now is good. So,
Yeah.
what I did when I decided to talk about that with you, and you said
Mhm,
yes, I asked some friends what they thought of the song. I thought it
mhm.
would be a good starting point. And then
Yeah.
Luan is my brother, and then I asked him, "Oh, Luan, what about the Sound of Silence? What do you think about it?" And
Mhm,
then he said a lot about the song, and I wrote it here. But he said that he thinks that it is not about necessarily the silence,
mhm,
but about like what you hear, or you're hearing voices, but at the same time there is a lack of communication. So he
mhm.
said that he think that it is the noise of our day to day that make us not talk, and all you hear is the noise of silence, because theoretically, how would you pronounce
Mhm.
that?
Theoretically.
Theoretically, silence
Mhm.
can be compared to the lack of voices and not to the lack of noise. And that I
Right.
thought it was really interesting. And he said that he thinks that people, they're living quietly, and he uses an example very interesting, that when he entered the bus
Mhm.
and everyone is in silence, and that silence, it speaks for itself. And
Right.
he said also that he feels like we are not paying attention or talking to each other, and most people are not listening to us, and we are not
Mhm.
talking to people. Like, it's not a voiceless silence. It's not. that there are no voices, but the communication, it's meaningless. And then I asked another friend, and he said that he really liked the song. And I think that it was interesting that he said that it is about loneliness and feeling alone even when you are not alone. And I thought that was so interesting, and I wanted to share their opinions with you.
I do kind of agree with both of them in different parts. So in the beginning of the song, I would agree with like Vlad, where he says, speaking of loneliness, I think from the
So
beginning of
let's
the
let's
song.
let's go to the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So here, Hello Darkness, my old friend, I do think, and I had to, I listened again and I had to think about it. So I think here, just the first line, Hello Darkness, my old friend, just kind of accepts that we are lonely. And the writer, Paul Simon, I guess, uh, had accepted this loneliness and had come to like, um, had come to terms with his loneliness, and he personified darkness as a friend because he maybe had found solace in just being lonely by recognizing that we are somewhat alone. Just from the first two lines. Uh, that's what I get from the first two lines. Just loneliness. We are alone in this world full of many people. So he is alone, and in his loneliness, he could. Uh, in his loneliness, he could see clearly or think clearly, and was able to see whatever came next, like the vision and seeing the problem and seeing like the communication thing, was from his loneliness, being able to step away from all of the noise and actually think clearly in that point. So yes, I do think the song is about the feeling of loneliness, and just as more as he continues to think in this his lonely place, he realizes how lonely everybody is
Yes.
because we are not really communicating as people anymore. And we have kind of found a new God that pulls our attention. And I think in different generations or different decades, the song will still be, will still be, second time, I'm forgetting the word.
Contemporary. I don't know how to say contemporanean. I don't know.
Well, I guess I'm trying to say like it will be relevant in many generations because through our different generations, we as a society have found a new God, something that pulls our attention and pulls us from every other person. And I think like if you keep on going in the song, I think he mentions that
Yeah.
just being not able to connect with each other because we have been pulled by something that we now worship. Of course, it becomes like a technology, our phones, money, whatever, but it disconnects us from everybody. But him being lonely, he was able to figure that out. So accepting the loneliness first and then being able to see clearly from the place of loneliness, if that
Oh,
makes sense.
totally, totally. Yeah, something curious that I found when I was reading about that song, I was watching, I was obsessed. Yesterday, I was like very obsessed about that song because, sometimes we listen to things or we read things, but
Hmm.
I mean, and they touch us, but then we just move on with our lives and we
Right.
don't like grasp the of what
Profundity.
profundity of what we
Yeah.
just were exposed to. and
Sure.
uh, and with that song, I guess I've been listening to my song throughout my life. It is a song from the 60s, like it's been there since I was a child. I listened to it so many times, and I knew it was deep, but I up until that point that you mentioned,
Hmm.
I was like, wow. And it is interesting because I was just recently reading a book, and the author, he began the book like quoting this song, and then all of a sudden, I think I've been l- reading or listening for the words of the song in many places of like thinking about it, and like I will tell you more as we go through the song, but there are some parts that it's been with me, but
That stuck with you, yeah?
that stuck with me without me realizing it,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. I do think even personally, I've listened to this song a lot of times, but I haven't really thought about it as much until yesterday and today. Because you hear the song and it's a very, well, I think with the music, lyrics and the melody goes a long way. And the melody of the song is very like it cuts through. So you do feel something from listening to this song. You do feel something, but because we don't like pay attention to what we are feeling, we don't really analyze what the song was saying to us. But that is I guess, the power of a great song. Even without paying attention, it still has an impact.
Yeah.
And then when you finally stop and try to like pay attention, you realize how much a lot of things have stuck from just listening to the song, right?
Yeah. So one interesting thing that I found about that first verse,
Mm-hmm.
when he says, "Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk to you again, with you again." Um, I found this that he used to go to bathrooms
Go off
because
in the.
because of the bathroom tiles,
All right.
and he would like to turn on turn on the faucet so he could hear the water.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking that maybe this, like this "Hello, darkness, my old friend," the bathroom was the place where he would go to vent his thoughts
Mm-hmm.
and emotions. Like this darkness were a person that he would share with.
Mm-hmm.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, right. As though the darkness were a person that he would share with. Yeah.
Yeah. So he would need to be alone with his
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, and since there was no one else willing to listen, he would
Mm-hmm.
talk to the darkness or to the titles in the bathroom,
Tiles.
tiles in the
Mm-hmm.
bathroom. And I thought that was so interesting because I I don't know about you, Daniel, but I always had like some safe places where I could go to, where I could be alone in silence, and like just be, and even though some of those places, for me, it was libraries. I would go whenever, and squares too, but one particular square that is called, in Portuguese we say Praça da Liberdade, but it is Liberty Square, maybe.
Okay.
It is a square in the city that I used to live called Belo Horizonte. And I would feel so safe there and in libraries. And and maybe it was what the bathrooms and the tiles meant to him, to
Mm-hmm.
Simon. I don't know. And do you have a safe place, a place where you could
Be
go?
with my thoughts. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say I am alone most of the time, so I guess my home is my safe place.
Yeah.
And purposefully, I choose to stay alone and be alone most of the time because it's a whole thing where I'm trying to get myself to enjoy company for a long time. I don't enjoy it for a long time. But growing up, I wasn't a fan of silence so much because
Really?
no, I'm not a talkative and I didn't have like I'm not a very social person also, but I grew up in I grew up in a big family. I have three sisters, so it's four children and my parents, and we always had like a relative staying around. So I grew up in a big family. I didn't have a lot of friends, so it's not like I was always talking to people, but I wasn't so much a fan of silence. I was always doing something to take to just distract myself. I didn't used to like just the emptiness of silence and how loud it was,
Yeah.
because when everything is silent, you're forced to like think, and that I didn't used to like. Now my home is my safe place. Actually, I enjoy it. My home is my safe place. It's where I go when I want to just be alone and think. And I now I don't have a problem just lying and being occupied with my thoughts because everything is very quiet. I do enjoy that sometimes. But when I was younger and a while ago, I didn't used to like it. I did used to go to the bathroom many times when everything felt overwhelming, when you live with a big family, or when I lived with my friends and things felt overwhelming. I would go to the bathroom for a while and just stay there. But even then, the silence of in a bathroom, it can be too like much for someone who doesn't want to think. and so I didn't really have a safe place because I didn't want to think so much then. But now I do. My safe place is my home. I live alone purposely. I don't want people to be here because sometimes when it's too much out there, I come back here and it's not outside
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
place. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah. That is interesting. My brother, he usually do something. He does
it
something.
usually does.
Yeah, he does something that it is interesting to me because he goes to work. When I used to live in the same city as he lives, he would go to work, and then let's say we would go into have lunch and meet for something, and his house, I lived next to his work, his job, his work,
Mm-hmm.
and he would need, after working, he would need to go to his home, even though he would only stay in there for like 10 minutes, and then he would take the bus, go to his house, stay there. He would say that he was recharging his batteries or something. He needed to lay down
Right.
on his bed, and then he would he would he would do the same way
Return.
again,
Mm-hmm.
return. It would take him like an hour and a half just to go there, stay there 10 minutes. And I was just confused. I was like, but if you are here, why don't we just meet? And he's like, no, because I'm tired. And I was like, okay, but staying at your home like 10, 20 minutes. And then he needed to, and now that I kind of, I know, yeah, I do live alone too. I understand that like, I don't know, it is just good to stay here. And then but you
No, it
mentioned,
is. It
yeah.
is. Sorry, but I understand him because I used to do the same thing. I'd go home after work. I used to work out of my. I started working full time at home when the pandemic began. But I used to work in a language center in the city. But I used to work till 9 p.m. And sometimes, it's Friday and I want to go meet a friend or something at 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. when I lived in another city. But I would always go home first because that five
Yeah.
minutes, that 10 minutes in your own space where it's just you and you just feel relaxed, it's really enough for you. And then it makes you like you get ready again to go out into the world. So I totally understand
It
it.
is so interesting. Yeah, it is so interesting. And I wanted to share something with you. Uh, Before you mentioned the bathroom and Simon also, I don't talk about it much. Only a few friends of mine know that.
Mhm,
I used to share rooms with my brother,
mhm.
and we lived in a small apartment. My parents, my brother and me, and I
My brother and I,
and I,
yeah, we lived in a. Mhm.
yeah. And then I would read books in the bathroom. Like I would take a that's weird and maybe not hygienic at all.
Well, it isn't though because I
Uh,
did the same thing.
with the pillow, you would take a pillow to the bathroom and
No, no,
you would lay down on the
I would
floor.
take a, I would take a blanket, and sometimes actually I used to sit in the bathtub. But this was when I lived I had this one bedroom with a flatmate, and sometimes I just didn't care. Like I didn't want to be around somebody else, I'd go into the bathroom with a blanket and I'd sit in the bathtub and I'd read something or watch something.
Oh,
And
cool.
it's not
Cool.
it's not hygienic, of course, but eh.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was good. I read the entire Game of Thrones, all the 5 books in the bathroom. Like
That
that's
is amazing.
yeah, it
Just
was
I
good.
feel like anyone who has read Game of Thrones, anyone who has read the books, very impressive. I watched the series, but it was so difficult for me. No, I
Really?
really enjoyed it, but I just sometimes I really had to push myself to watch it. And then I imagine reading it. I'm not like a huge fan of things like that. But it was really great. The series was really fun for me.
Yeah,
Just told myself after that,
cool.
nothing like that again.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but about the bathroom, I think a lot of people do it. Maybe they don't just talk about it, but it is common, especially if
Really,
you live with many
really.
people. I was
Yeah.
lucky when I was a child. I'm the only boy in my family, so I always had my own room, kinda. But sometimes we had relatives living with us, and so we shared a room. And then the bathroom was my safe place. I used to take long baths when I was young, and my mother used to be so upset with me because it
Wow.
was a waste of water. We didn't used to have like all water all the time, but I would fill up the bathtub and I just go there and I had a book which was usually like a crime novel or something because that's what I used to read when I was younger, and I would just stay there for hours, and it's not like it was a hot bath, so my skin would like really just go, it's just squeeze.
Oh,
But
damn.
it was just nice to be
Yeah.
sometimes away from people, but not like, but the thing is, I didn't used to be so silent because I didn't want to think. So I always had something to do when I had my own personal time. But
Yeah.
now it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing. I feel better now that I put it out.
You should. It is
Yeah.
better to have those things
Yeah.
that you do, and it does help. I think. Oh, this is
Yeah.
an interesting part.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, do you have any thoughts on the second verse?
On the second verse, the part that really stood out to me because I read this verse over and over, and it's the stabbed by the flash of the neon light, because that was kind of the introduction to this what, as I mentioned earlier, like this God,
Yeah.
I guess. So it's what really stood out to me was the words that he used, like the intensity of the exposure, not just like my eyes were like touched by the flash of a neon light, but stabbed. So it shows like the power that it shows the power of this like God that was pulling people in my idea. That was what stood out to me in this verse because I read it over and over and over again, and pretty much that was the most thing that stood out to me here. Just
Yeah.
the introduction of this light.
Yeah. It is interesting that you mentioned earlier that you think that throughout generations, this neon light or this God will be different things. Like
Right,
it could be money, it could be, I don't know, celebrities, it could
right.
be a lot of different things. And yeah, it is interesting. I read as I was researching that he actually had a dream about 10,000 people bowing to this god made of, it was actually a god made of neon light.
I see.
And then I thought that it is interesting and really, really, can I say actual, like current. It's
Sure,
something,
it's real.
it is real. And for me, I thought also we have this president, I don't know if you heard about him. uh,
Bolsonaro.
yes, yes, you've heard of him. Yeah,
Yeah,
who doesn't, right?
right.
Or who haven't?
Who hasn't?
Who hasn't? Yeah. And then I thought that he could be a neon light. He could be these people and this. authorities that people
Mm-hmm.
are willing to
Authority.
follow. Authority, how could I say?
No, no, you said authorities and just
Authority,
one. Yeah, exactly.
authority
Yeah, right.
that people are willing to follow without questioning. They could be like a god as well,
Mm-hmm.
like a
Right,
green light.
definitely. Right. Definitely. I think that is the point. It's like uh, we find something every generation, I guess. We find something that we allow to take like preeminence. Do you know this word? Like to
I
take
no 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 no
preeminence.
no. I was about to ask you. Tell me.
To take
Preeminence?
like the top position, like being the most priority, like be the most priority in our life, and take over our thoughts and our reasoning for doing anything, and it guides our life. Unfortunately, these things are good things sometimes, but because we've given them too much power, they become bad. And that's why I said, every generation there will be something. I don't know how to disconnect from it. For example, all my life, I grew up, when I was growing up, my family didn't always have it, but my family has gone, from places. My family has been very well, then gone down, and well again, and gone down. And so, you grow up with this mentality that I am going to make money. If there is anything I'm going to do, it's going to make money. I need to be rich, and that's the thing that pushes a lot of people. And so everything, my entire life was focused on getting a job that would give me money, doing something. And when I put myself in the places that I thought I really wanted to be because I wanted to make money, they just didn't work out. They didn't work out, and then I had to start finding a way to make like my happiness the priority. And so most of the things that I do now are things that I really want to do, and not the things that I think I should do because I have this just one thing on my mind all the time. So we do find different things. I guess for me, my God right now is my happiness and trying to be
Uh,
happy all the
yeah.
time, but I'm not money, which it used to be before, and just trying to make the most money. But trying to be happy and doing something that makes me happy. For now, it is this teaching thing. I really enjoy it and it pushes me. But yeah, we will always find something. I think it's part of us. Even people who don't believe in God will find a God.
Yeah, of course, they'll find a God. We always
Right.
do. Yes, yes. Interesting. Thank you. So, that is my favorite verse.
People talking without me. Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is the entire, I guess, the essence of the entire
Yeah.
song, like how much we've disconnected from each other, how much everyone has just disconnected from each other. There is no, yeah, as your brother said, I guess, there is no meaningful communication or connection. We are all talking, yes, but we're not really leaving any impact on anybody's life. We are all like, there is no there is no effective communication, although people are talking. I guess this is the entire, it's how much we have been able to disconnect from each other
Yeah.
what on this uh, in this existence. And again, another reason why the song is so relevant, because this was in the 60s, but the more we see that even with devices that are supposed to help us communicate more, we're disconnected from each other
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
and more and more and more disconnected from each other. I don't know what was really interesting about this. I don't know if necessarily there will be a difference. I don't think like it will change. I don't
Really?
think that we will work. No, I don't think so. There'll always be something. And I don't think as a society we will have a community so much as before. A little example, when I was growing up on my street, we communicated with almost everybody on that street. Right next to my house, there was this house for people who were doing their postgraduate diploma in the university. And they used to come from all over the country, from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west, and they would live there for a year. And for that year, in our house, everybody would communicate. I knew my neighbors, we would talk to each other, we knew the names. Right now, I don't think anybody does this. So, and it just keeps going. It keeps going, keeps going. Even personally, myself, I have stopped trying to connect with people as much as I guess we did when we were children. So I think it will always be that way. We will just keep on disconnecting and disconnecting because we keep making ways to connect, except just going up to people and connect.
That's so interesting. What you just said remind me of something. I grew up in a very small city. Can I say very small city?
Right.
Very small city. Uh, and then I remember that I was maybe about 8, 9, 10, up until 15. I was there, and then I moved to this bigger city. But I remember that sometimes, because my city is in an area of, well, some tourism for people who read a particular author called Guimarães Rosa. So people who are, so there is this writer, and he wrote about that region that I used to live in. And some people that were like really fan of this writer, they would do like this, how do you say peregrination? Am I making words up? It's just like,
What?
yeah, I'm creating a word, sorry. So, do you know Santiago de Compostela in Spain,
No.
France? So, there is this religious kind of path that people, they, maybe
Like
you
a
know,
pilgrimage?
yes, I guess
Like
that's
a
it.
pilgrimage? Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so
Pilgrimage.
pilgrimage. So
Mm-hmm.
people, they go from a point to the other, they walk
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Yeah.
So there are some cities in this book, people who read this book and love this writer, they go they go through this path. And my city,
Mm-hmm.
it's in the middle of where they're going. So I would meet people, and also my father, he used to be a what he would he would sell intermediate the selling of farms. Uh,
Selling, he used to sell farms?
yeah, so if you had a farm and someone else would want to buy a farm, he would show your
Was like a
farm.
middleman
Yeah,
for farm sales.
yeah,
Well,
there is a name for people who does that in cities. Like if you want to buy a house, you would go to an agent's
you
and
go to a realtor if you want to buy a house. Is
yeah,
it a realtor for farms?
yeah, sort of. He would sell like these rural things.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would bring people all the time to our house because this city, it's called São Romão. It's for, and it's very rural. So he would bring the people who were going to take a look at the farms that he was selling,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them would stay with us. And then I remember that I would like, and sometimes the people who were buying farms, they had children that they would bring with them, and then I would become friends with those children, and then we would exchange addresses, and then we
Addresses, right?
will like, I mean, there was phone, but it was expensive to call someone, so we would write letters. There was no internet back then, and then we would just write letters, and then I correspond with a lot of people in Brazil.
Corresponded.
I corresponded. And then when you mentioned that, even with nuns that would go to the house on Sundays to pray, to preach the word of
Mm-hmm.
God, I would, do you say nuns for the
Sure.
Catholic Church?
Sure. Yeah. 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 Nuns. Yeah.
So they would come, and I was so open, and then I would talk, I would listen to them. And then they were in city for maybe a month, and then I was like, oh, so you are so cool, let's keep in contact. And then they would write to me, and then I would write to them. And then what you just said, when communication was harder, we communicated more. I mean,
Right.
maybe it was never harder, maybe it was just different, but we had
Right.
in us this willing to willing
Willingness.
this willingness to connect, and now we have
Yeah,
all
exactly.
the ways, like we could connect in numerous
Numerous.
numerous ways, but we don't, you know. And that's, yeah. So when he says people talking without speaking, I can see that people talking would be people producing sounds with their mouths, but speaking would be actually saying something meaningful. So we are
Right.
just mumbling. Can I say that?
Mumbling,
Mumbling.
right? Yeah, but no, think about it literal just for fun. Just think if people were walking on the street, just going.
Yeah, and the others are mumbling back. No,
Right.
and, and then just what,
Yeah.
what, and people hearing without listening. It's the same thing, like sounds entering your ears, but
Mm-hmm.
you're not actually paying attention to what's been said. And that
Right.
reminds me of something. Um, so in the bus stop, I would take the bus to go to college, and then they implement something like they implement music on the bus. Implemented,
Implemented, I guess. Mm-hmm.
implemented. They implemented like music in the bus stop. So you were like waiting for the bus and you were listening to music. And then one day I listened to a song like, and then I'm very, I talk to people, strangers, and then I said to the girl next to me, wow, I love this song. And then she said, what song? And then it was like, that song that's playing. And she was like, was it playing all along? And then I was like, yes, it's been playing. It's been playing like for a while
Right.
now. And then she wasn't listening. She was like, maybe we are in our heads all the time.
Right.
We are somewhere in our minds creating stories or thinking or like daydreaming, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But then, and then, you know, and then that day I had an insight, like, what am I not listening? What am I missing? Like the birds singing, or I don't know, the traffic sounds. We are not listening. I don't know.
Right.
We are hearing it.
Right. No, it is 100% true. I'm someone who does that. I could sit on a bus. I don't do it often, but I could sit on a bus and just sit there, but not listen to anything that's happening. There's something I do in my apartment. Sometimes I want to watch a movie for fun because I want something in the background. And I start watching this movie, and while I'm watching the movie, I pick up my phone and I told you I have a problem with Twitter, maybe.
Yeah, you
And I'm
told
on
me.
Twitter, right? And
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter or, reading some other article on my phone, as well as watching the movie or watching the movie. And then I hear something really, really like interesting from what I'm watching. So I stop and I go back. I realize that I haven't been paying attention at all. I rewind to the last point I remember, and then I started watching again, but exactly the same thing I was
Yeah.
doing,
Yeah, we do
it just
that.
happens again.
We do that.
And I don't pay attention to a lot of things. When I meet my friends, I do try to have very meaningful conversations with my friends because I want to, I live in a country that is not my home, and I do believe that I will move again. And the unfortunate thing about that is I will have to make friends again and make
Yeah.
friends again and make friends again. When I moved to Kiev last year, I decided I want to have connections that at least will last even though I move away from here. So when I speak to people, I want to really connect with them. I just don't want to have these superficial conversations with people all the time. So when I do meet my friends, I try and even during my lessons, I try and I push to try to have very, very meaningful conversations because I want my students to speak with me as though they're speaking with a friend. And I want my students to actually remember me even 1 year or 2 years after they stop taking lessons, to think of Daniel and have like this person that was actually part of their life and not just someone that passed by. Because a lot of my old friends from school, I'm not friends with a lot of people from school, just one person who I've been friends with for many, many years. And a lot of my old friends from school, some of them have written me and they tried to have conversations with me, but I couldn't. There was literally nothing. I told one of them, actually, I told one of them, like, I don't think there is anything we can talk about,
Well,
because we actually didn't make any real connection that would have, like, that would make us still have something that we shared or something that we could talk about. I have one friend who I went to school with and university with that we lived together also, and we know each other well, and we could have a conversation. We could not speak for months and then have like a 2 hour conversation on the phone. And that's the person I connected with. With the others, we're just laughing and making jokes, but there were no real conversations enough to make connections. And so the relationships died as we separated. And now I'm trying to make sure that when I eventually move away from here, if I do, because I actually love living here, I really love living in Kiev. But if I and when I eventually move away from here, I want to be able to have like strong connections and relationships with the people that I've met here. I hope.
oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I totally can relate with what you said. I told you that I'm also a teacher, right?
Yeah.
I do teach and I talk it as well. And I really try to build a good relationship with my students. I think I mean, with anyone that I meet, I try to be really, well, deep, but I try to be, I try to have meaningful
Yes.
conversations and meaningful relationships with people. I, I cannot be very superficial, even though in our profession sometimes it could be exhausting if you have like 6 people or 8, as I noticed that your schedule is so full, you teach a lot, and I know
Right.
that it can be very tiring at the end of the day if you have, because sometimes if you can do what most people do, it's just like build this, how do you say, this line and this distance.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes
Create
it
this
easier.
distance. Yeah.
It make it
Right.
easier, but what is the point? I keep wondering, like, what is the point of like going through life like that, like keeping everyone away, not
Mm-hmm.
being vulnerable, not getting to know another human being, not, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. What is the point of
yeah.
communicating if you're not going to make a connection?
Yeah, exactly, Daniel. Exactly. Well, I had so many things to say, but we ran out of time, and maybe in another opportunity we could keep.
Sure,
talk-
definitely. You can
Yeah,
chat and connect with me anytime, of course.
yeah, Daniel.
I watched our video and I was a little bit nervous watching it, but it was
Really?
fun.
Did you
It was
like it?
fun. It was fun. Yeah, yeah, I did like it. I did like it.
Yeah, no, it was wow, it was amazing. And this friend of mine, Murilo, he's been watching every video that I make, and he
Mhm.
said, I don't know if you saw his comments, but he said it
Yeah,
was
but
the.
I couldn't read Portuguese.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm going to translate. He said
Uh,
that it was the the his favorite talk
oh, that's so
among
nice.
all. He said that it was his favorite. Yeah,
That is so nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Really, it's a
No,
lot
no,
more
thank
fun than I
you, thank
imagined.
you, thank you, thank you for saying yes, yes. So I wish you a wonderful day, and I'll
Thank
be in
you.
touch, and I hope
Right.
to talk to you really soon.
Yes, great.
Yes.
Thank you too. Have a nice day.
Yes, yes, yes. So, bye bye.
Bye.